One of the hardest things to do is just lay out the accountabilities by seat and just forget about the people for a second.
We've scaled this business to now 100 employees, and it's getting to the point where I had built a plan that by the summer of 2026, we would move from founder-led sales to complete sales-led sales.
Pick your strength, which is usually the thing that you're naturally great at and love to do, and put great people around you, and then stay in your lane.
Welcome to Outsource to Profits. I have a fantastic guest. Rani, do you mind introducing yourself to the audience? Who are you, what you do, and how you serve the world?
Sure. So I'm Rani Dabrai. I am an EOS implementer. I work with small scaling businesses who want to get out of their own way and run a better business, live a better life.
Fantastic. We're going to be talking about accountability and getting out of your own way. And I just posted on LinkedIn our 4 core values. It's posted in our office in Bangladesh. And one of the core value tenets is overt communication. This happened to me last week. We've scaled this business to now 100 employees. And it's getting to the point where I had built a plan that by the summer of 2026, we would move from founder-led sales to complete sales-led sales. We already have a team in account management and customer success, but it would take over from sales qualified lead to win. And the team, we have a daily stand-up where we kind of go through, we use L10s and we're a huge EOS shop. And long and the short is at the beginning of the week, they pulled me aside and they said, I think it's time to fast forward that plan. You're becoming a bottleneck. And we need you to work on sales strategy, go to market, thinking years into the future rather than doing demos all day long. And it was great that they felt the autonomy to come forward and tell me this. But I had a lot of self-reflection and I have to build a plan to fast forward this. My favorite thing in the business, which is closing deals, I have to fast forward this plan. So with this, you walk into one of your new customers' offices, and it is so obvious to you that they're holding on to the purse strings of their favorite things. How do you help them recognize that they're creating a prison for themselves and a prison of their own business by, not having the ability to let go and the accountability of allowing others to grow through others?
In your business, just out of curiosity, are you the visionary?
I am the
visionary. But you're also in the sales seat.
I am, yes. So I'm the visionary that I have a dual skill of being a farm boy who can dig into the trenches and be I think you guys call it the operator or the implementer.
Integrator.
Integrator, the archetype other than that. I have the ability to play both roles, but my natural inclination is my head in the clouds.
Yeah. So because you're the visionary and you have the natural inclination head in the clouds, that's where you belong. A lot of visionaries I meet, which is a lot of founders, when they start out that business and they're on that scaling journey, trick themselves into saying what you've just said, which is, I'm good at both. I can do both. And the reality is you probably can because you had to. But
I had to pitch.
Right. You had to follow through. You had to do the starting and all the finishing. And I get that. So what I would say is that in the end, another way of looking at that is you're not the one person with dual skills. You're one human in 2 seats, right? Because both seats, visionary and integrator, are wired to be oppositional to each other. One is the dreamer and the other one is the horizontal bungee pulling the dreamer back and saying, hang on a second, sales says this. Finance says this, but operations can only handle this. So love you, but let's keep your dreams in a way that we can get them finished. So what I'd say is, the thing is, you said something really interesting, which is that my natural inclination is, and as you were telling me that story, I could feel how much you love selling and how much you love going in there and winning and closing the deal. And if you're the visionary,
the dopamine hit.
Yeah, the dopamine hit, right? So you want to be the Tasmanian devil in your business. And the trick is just to figure out, you might be good at something, but are you truly great at it? And is it what you love to do? Because you built the business yourself, you're probably good at all the things. It's like the chef. the head chef, if he or she, if they couldn't chop carrots, they never would have become a chef. They had to start somewhere, but it doesn't mean you want them chopping carrots. It means that you want them making the final flourish and doing the creative thinking. So when you're saying that you're in 2 seats, what you're really saying is, I'm up front of house, talking to everyone, taking all the credit, all the glory, and also getting in the big celebrities into my restaurant, but I'm also running in the back, chopping the carrots. So the problem is doing one negatively affects and impacts your ability to really properly deliver the other. So pick your strength, which is usually the thing that you're naturally great at and love to do, and put great people around you, and then stay in your lane.
Well, on that topic, okay, so you were talking, that's an interesting point. You were talking about the strength, of course, if you were to be, if you never needed to play the CEO role, naturally you would say, well, your strength is you're great at sales and you could chop carrots faster than anybody, but the business is going to need the maitre d' and somebody's going to need to stay up front. So how do you help a founder recognize your super skill is also a detriment to the future enterprise value of your business?
And sometimes I get it. Sometimes the carrot chopper calls in sick and you need that maitre d'. I get it. And you've got to run back and do it, because as the person who started the business, you're the one person who can not just do it because you had to, but you can do it quickly. You don't need any training. You don't need any onboarding. You really don't need any supervision. You just need to deliver. And for a while, and in every business as you're scaling, that becomes true, because every business that's scaling has this problem where you'll grow and then you'll plateau, and then you'll grow and then you'll plateau, and you'll hit a series of ceilings. As you're approaching the ceiling in your business, what you're really doing is looking for openings, for new seats. And the problem is a seat might open, but a person might not be available to fill it. And the person who drops in to fill it is usually the person who has either always filled it, or the leader of that team, or the leader of the business, because it's easy for them to do. So the trick is to understand when you've dropped into a different seat and recognize the nuance, and then start to document what's needed in that seat. And as soon as you can, find a good core value fit, which is the right person, and then put them into the seat, which is the right seat. So core values, you said something at the start that your own team came to you, living that core value of communication, and told you, we need to, what you need to do. We need to fast track this. We want to go ahead. So your core values are obviously being lived. Just finding the right person is number one, but defining that seat first. So when you find the maitre d' gap start to emerge, we just write it down, figure it out, put it on our accountability chart.
Do you have, so a friend of mine's name's Dan Martell, and he created something called the replacement ladder. And he's helped founders recognize, there's truly like $1 an hour tasks, $5 an hour tasks, 10 and beyond. And his replacement ladder looks like the following. You have to get yourself out of administrivia, the importance of an executive assistant or virtual assistant. Then you have to get yourself out of customer support, customer success, then marketing, then sales, then executive kind of ELT leadership. And then you're at the freedom pillar at the top. From your experience and implementing EOS, where do you naturally start? I've heard others describe it as actually sometimes you don't have an integrator. So your next play is a COO and then working top down. But in your average customer that you're helping, where do you start with role delineation, separation, all these sort of things?
Well, what you've actually said is interesting, because that's usually where I meet teams. There's a visionary in place, but they're also sitting in the integrator seat. And when you have a visionary trapped in the integrator seat, you get all these chaotic moments and spikes in the business. So starting with that makes sense. However, people don't always either feel comfortable or can't articulate that that's the starting point. So where I actually start is with the GWC, which is, do they get it? Do they want it? Do they have the capacity to do it? And when you need new seats in your business, either the W or the C usually starts to fall down first in any human being, which is the capacity. So capacity means, skills, training, ability. But when you've got people who are jumping into different seats because the business is scaling and it necessarily needs someone just to get the job done, they'll stop having good capacity in their existing role. And what will happen is they'll start to fall down on their accountabilities. So keeping a really close eye on when that fall down, begins to happen, and then understanding that maybe that's the opening for a seat. And although it happens, because I work with leadership teams, although it's always really obvious that yes, we need an integrator, that should be first port of call because you've got to keep the leadership team accountable. Sometimes some of the leadership team are in different seats further down the business. So delineating those first can often be cheaper, quicker, and more helpful because it frees up their headspace. And oftentimes, the integrator is usually in the room of the leadership team, but the person who's the right person and for the right seat can't see it, that they're the right person to be the integrator because they're just so overwhelmed doing all the other stuff. So
they're working so much
exactly.
in the business. They have no concept of what working on the business
exactly
is.
Or time. Why, the overwhelm of, oh my, I couldn't even begin to think about that because I've just got to keep the lights on.
I lived this in my first agency, grew from 0 to 3 million in overnight, essentially. But I then woke up at 3 million and I realized I had built no systems, no process. I had transferred no knowledge. We were 27 employees, but it was like, it was an octopus's tentacles, essentially. And the only time that I would ever actually think and work on the business was during the Christmas holidays for the next year's business plan. It was just like a disaster. Yeah. Interesting. Can we, with the final question, coming back to accountability, if you were to give some tactical words of wisdom to a founder around this core topic, what would be some tactile things as a next step of best practice and so forth they should be looking for?
Yeah. So something that I do this with teams on day one, every implementer does, but it's traditionally probably, especially in an established team, one of the hardest things to do is just lay out the accountabilities by seat and just forget about the people for a second. And that's really, really hard to do because you're seeing faces in your brain and you're attaching people to seats and you're attaching people to what they've always done. So understanding what the seat in the function in the business needs from top to bottom. So starting with major basic functions and then, cascading it down all through the whole business. What does the seat actually need for the business to stay alive? What are our commercial obligations, irrespective of who's in the seat? And then break that down. Then and only then would you start to put the people in the seats, but each person has to GWC the seat. When you do the GWC piece, which is including capacity, then you look at time. If you find one person in more than one seat, you got to check if they definitely got the time to do both seats really, really well. Remembering that seats are about accountability, which is what you've got to deliver on, not what you've got to execute on to look busy. So it's actually accountabilities over time and distance, leveraging, you're already in level 10s, so leveraging things like the scorecard every week, understanding a rock's getting done. Are these deliverables truly possible in the working week and the available time that this person has? And if they're not, or if they're slipping, we've got to find, are they the right accountabilities for that seat? And if they are, is the right person in the seat? And if they're not, we've got to find the right GWC fit for the seat.
This has been fantastic. How do people get a hold of you if they want to
know more? Sure, just on my LinkedIn. I'm on LinkedIn every single day. So if they want to reach out there, and by the time this comes out, my website should also be out there too. And obviously on my EOS microsite, if you just put in EOS, Rani Dabrai, EOS Implementer Rani Dabrai, I'm on there too.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for being on Outsource to Profit.
Thank you. one of the hardest things to do, is just lay out the accountabilities by seat and just forget about the people for a second.
We've scaled this business to now 100 employees. And it's getting to the point where I had built a plan that by the summer of 2026, we would move from founder-led sales to complete sales-led sales.
Pick your strength, which is usually the thing that you're naturally great at and love to do, and put great people around you, and then stay in your lane.